Gege don't miss is the thought that comes to my mind when I try to recall a single time Gege has written something that was pure plot convenience that probably was never mentioned before without even any hints like most shonen do. But when you actually look at it, he did drop hints. One of the few examples I can think of is when the culling games were first announced and Sukuna claimed Megami's body, and then not only a chapter later when he brings out the 10 shadows for the first time, there's an explanation how that's possible because we have never seen anything like it or anything to suggest that this was possible. And that's because the incarnation can read the memories of the host. At first I wanted to call out Gege on his bullshit, but then I had to sit and think about it after rereading the chapter and think about it really hard. And as I'm sitting there really thinking about it, I really had to ask myself, is it really lying? It's like watching a magic trick for the first time or watching a wrestling show as a first time viewer. You just don't know the game. Because throughout the story we've had Yuji, but there was no mention of reading memories. But even then, as the main character, we were introduced into the story as the same time as the main character. So everything he was learning, and with Sukuna not being a team player, we have to learn everything by first-hand experience. Even the most basics of basics. So anything Yuji would learn for the first time, we would learn as well. And the only other time it came up, the very short Sukuna versus Yuji fight where Sukuna talks about how Kenjaku is a freak. And this whole time, we're thinking, oh, he is saying this because of the feats of strength Yuji is showing him. But it's also because of the small flashback that we get in chapter 143. Only to then be reiterated 70 plus chapters later when Sukuna is reminiscing, oh, Kenjaku sure is twisted. And says that he is from that time. And like many others, me included, most of us thought Sukuna was referring to his time in the Heian era, but it's actually referring to chapter 143. Yuji had his mini flashback to his time as a baby. And that is just one among many callbacks that this manga has had that I can remember just off the top of my head. Gege has an amazing ability to call back a plot point from the story and make us think that it's another plot point that's completely different, but is actually relevant to the story at the point in time and has not veered off course at one point, and is able to cover up any plot hole one might normally fall into, which makes Gege such a magician of a writer, which amazingly goes back to my first point on the reveal of incarnations being able to read the host's memories. Reveals later that he was reading Yuji's memories the entire time. Even though it was right there in front of us, we never pieced together the clues. Just as Yuji can read Sukuna's memory from when he's taking over, Sukuna can do the reverse. As we are later shown that Sukuna knows the exact hand signs to use and summon the 10 shadows technique, which then follows into the Gojo versus Sukuna fight, which is just hilarious to me as throughout this series, Gege has been glazing, hyping up clash between two of the strongest Jujutsu techniques in the Jujutsu world that resulted in the mutual deaths of both users. Since almost the start of the series, has mentioned at least twice that even through the flashback of Gojo training Megami that he should have more confidence in himself. And though this is hindsight, in my eyes, the scene is portrayed as sort of a foreshadowing in of itself. And say what you want, and technically, Gojo versus Sukuna was mostly a 6 Eyes and Limitless versus 10 Shadows fight, as it was Gojo versus Sukuna fight. And the ending happened just as he foretold. Both people died. 6 Eyes and Limitless Gojo, and the 10 Shadows technique, currently Sukuna. Even though Sukuna didn't die, but all of the 10 Shadows summons were killed in the fight, effectively killing the technique. So this probably was a fight Gege has been dreaming of to happen, but had to find some way to make it happen. And he found a way. And for a guy that says he just writes a story where the story takes him and doesn't really plan out everything and only plan out the really important bits like the ending as he says, it's an amazing that he has such an ability to use callbacks like this, almost as the level of Oda. Which is why when Gege finally reveals Sukuna's curse technique and finally explains to us or shows us how it works. The clues to the secret would probably have been there in our faces the entire time, especially considering the first episode of JJK where Gojo is explaining how Carrot's techniques work with the soda cans, something that hasn't been mentioned ever again. And from what we've seen from the Mahoraga versus Sukuna fight, and from these current chapters with Sukuna showing new usage of his slashing techniques, I believe the clues to revealing Sukuna's curse technique has been all but openly revealed to us throughout the story, and we just need to put the pieces together.